evening and welcome back to Race Stars TV for the Motorsport Australia S5000 E-Series, brought to you by Racecraft Simulations. We head to Phillip Island for the final round of this S5000 Championship. My name's Chris Mitchell and I'm joined tonight by Scott Rankin. Jump in for commentary.
Yeah, I tell you what, Chris, Phillip Island, what a picturesque venue for the home of the final round of the S5000 series. It's been long, it's been hard, they've been difficult machines to drive, and tonight we bring them home for a draft pack heavy race. This is going to be excellent. This is going to be something super, super special.
Yeah, can't wait to get stuck into this one as we jump straight into qualifying. You said it all already, Scott. Plenty of drafting coming at us, a very high-speed circuit. And I'm sure this is going to make for some pretty exciting racing. These S5000 cars, or better known as the Formula Renault 3.5 inside iRacing, a very difficult car to drive at the best of times, but on a high speed and sometimes slippery circuit like Phillip Island, it's really going to throw the cat amongst the pigeons.
Yeah, it's gonna be really, really about making sure that you're getting at least some clear air to the front end of that wing. Southern Loop is gonna be incredibly difficult. Turn one, it's just about flat out, slight little bit of a lift. Obviously, the car's gonna rotate quite aggressively. They're coming on power, so balancing those rear tires. We've always talked about it. This is the car that really separates, for me, the men from the boys in terms of the open wheelers on the iRacing platform. This takes a lot of skill to drive precisely, and also think about what you're gonna do with that DRS activation as well.
Of course, with only a limited number of activations available to the drivers during race conditions, that makes the selection and playing a bit of strategy while moving at high speed an extra element that the drivers have to contend with, as they have done over the past 9 rounds of this Racecraft S5000 Championship. A quick look at the way things should be lining up coming into tonight. Damon Woods, your championship leader on 732 points. Tim Delisle in second on 656, and Joshua Stewart currently holding third in the championship points on 513, followed by this man on screen right now, Greg Olsen, in the positive sim racing entry, who just goes up to P4 in qualifying, trim very nicely there. Greg dropping into a 1:15.6. Tim Delisle on top right now with a 1:15.2 in qualifying. There's a bag of points up for grabs tonight as well, Scott. We're talking about 10 points for qualifying, 30 points for the sprint, and 60 points for the feature race, with a gap that does not expand beyond that between first and second. The championship's still technically up for grabs.
Yeah, they're really, really exciting to see that as well. You know, you see so many championship finales, you come into them, it's just about all over and done. It's just about, oh, you got to finish in this spot. It's not about that. They're going to have to, that concept throughout the night of where they sit in terms of the championship battle, what they need to do, it will change after the first heat. It will change after qualifying. There's so many little boxes to tick. Did we get through qualifying? Did we tick that first initial box? Okay, how did qualifying turn out? All right, I'm a few rows down, I'm a few rows up. Starting to get that into your mind, and here's the results from qualifying.
Yes, this is how they'll line up for the sprint race on offer tonight here from Phillip Island Circuit. Tim Delisle takes pole for the final round of the Racecraft S5000 Championship, so already 10 points going in his back pocket. Josh Stewart goes to second on the outside front row, 0.16 of a second behind. Damon Woods missing out on a front row start by 6/1000ths of a second, alongside Greg Olsen, another positive sim racing entry, teammate to Tim Delisle on the outside of row 2. Jason Sieg will start from P5, with Shane Russell, the rock star for Downforce Racing Team Purple, on the third row. Miguel Crespo from P7. Paul Rogers in the 75 Sim Sports entry out of P8. Reese Marquetz in the simrigs.com DPR entry from P9. And Steve Jansen rounding out P10. As we look back, Andrew Youssef in the 11th spot. Bailey Evans down there in the simrigs.com entry down to P12. With a few more stacking up behind him here. Griffiths, Bowden down in 14th will look to try and make some inroads in this field. From Drew Collins, Will Ryan, and Anthony Marzoka, your 17 cars who have decided to come and battle it out here in Phillip Island.
Yeah, 17 cars. It's going to be difficult. For me, I don't want to be on that second or third row. I think that's probably going to be the most difficult spot in the field to start, get down into turn number 1. Maybe it's down as far back as 10th, where everyone's sort of surging in behind you. Big drafting opportunity into turn 1, and we just know about it. You know, you go off at turn 1, you run wide there, you're straight up and across Southern Loop. So it's going to be immediately race brain engage. What am I trying to do? And for those who are a champion-elect, those who are fighting for it, they're going to be a little bit more tame. Does that bring them unstuck though? Because sometimes you back things up, you settle down, you try and drive to a number when you've been aggressive all season. And Damon Woods, I can tell you, he's not like that. There's nothing like that in his repertoire. Never drives that way.
You know, he's a smart cookie as a driver as Damon Wood. Starting behind there, you can see the white and blue Dua Esports entry on third spot on the starting grid here as the revs are up. We go green from Phillip Island for the sprint race. The fun time this season. Oh no, there's already a shunt off the start. Further back in the grid, but it's going to be Tim Delisle who leads into turn one for the first time.
Yeah, it's Andre Youssef and Reese Margits who at the back of the field who got involved in that one, so hopefully they can get themselves going. And then through the southern loop for the first time, Delisle leads us away. Good start by Delisle. Now he's got to settle in.
Right behind him, Joshua Stewart getting a decent run into second. Damon Wood settling into third off this start. And so we'll look for a little bit of clean air as they come down towards Miller Corner at turn 4 for the first time. A hard braking area, trying to slow things right up and pinch the car off at the corner. Very difficult to do with these big and cumbersome cars, especially on very cold tyres at the start of the race. As Delisle leads them up through turn 7. They get a bit of a wind on here through the 7 and 8 complex before they make the run to Lukey Heights. And they climb that hill before the earth falls away from underneath Tim Delisle. Back down into turn 10. Hard on the brakes again. Really easy to pinch a brake right here and come unstuck, and easy again to light the tyres up on the exit and ruin your run as they come around turns 11 and 12 to finish off lap number 1.
Yeah, so who's the biggest movers and shakers? Who's going to manage to grab time? Who's going to manage to go backwards? Well, one of the drivers that was involved in that lap 1 accident was actually Michael Crespo. He's already back into the pit lane. It looks like his race number 1 is just about over and done with. And I believe one of the other drivers that was involved was Youssef. So for Youssef, he has climbed a few spots further back. But yeah, it's not been a great opening lap for those guys.
A big move from Rob Bowden and Bailey Evans further back in the field. We catch Robbie Griffiths here in the Fishy Motorsports entry number 9. There's Rob Bowden up to position number 8. He's already up 6 spots from where he started. So we made comment calling the grid there to Rob Bowden a bit further down than we'd expect in P14. He's one of the drivers throughout this championship that's continued to climb and get better and better throughout race conditions. And we see Rob already up to the 8th spot. We're up behind the hot shot Bailey Evans as they climb through the field in their short, sharp sprint race that merely gives them championship points, but it sets the starting grid for the feature race later on.
Yeah, so, you know, obviously already starting to see a few guys that were just, you know, first target was achieve lap 1, get through there, get out the other side. Now they'll start to set on chasing back down and through. And for Damon Woods, I think he's just reading. He's just watching and reading. This is about information gathering. This isn't about necessarily going all out for glory in the sprint race. Yeah, absolutely. If the opportunity presents itself, you'll go for it. But first and foremost, what are the guys ahead doing? How are their cars responding? Do they have a little bit more downforce on? Do they have a little bit less swing on? What's the car like in a straight line? That's what he's gathering right now.
Well, Woods had a bit of a, by his standards, rough night at the office at Interlagos for the 9th round of this championship a couple of weeks ago. Was fastest in qualifying, claimed 10 points for his efforts of claiming pole by over a 10th and a half back to Tim Delisle, but only managed to finish 5th in the sprint and climbed back to finish 3rd in the feature race. Now, that doesn't sound like too bad of a night at the office, but for Damon Woods, who's been so dominant on previous rounds, actually a bit of a rough one for the championship leader. He's looking tonight to just try and consolidate, try and pick up some points, and currently sitting in 3rd. He doesn't need to do much else right now to pick up a solid bag of points and be able to clinch this championship tonight.
And remember, this is a driver who's as well going to be going to Motorsports Australia's biggest night of nights in terms of things to collect potentially a few eSeries trophies. He's trying to really put together his resume and to really progress his real-world careers. You know, that Formula Ford offering, can he transition that into maybe it's a drive in the Excels for the next season. Maybe it's a drive in something different. Maybe where does he take that? So for him, this is really, really important. He wants to show a clean set of heels when he's down and when he's in a position where all he has to do is clinch a championship, because this shows responsibility. So it's now starting to prove to people what he's capable of, what his psychology is capable of. So the round from Interlagos is important. How do you respond to difficulty? But also for this battle in the middle of the pack as well.
And he's been one of those drivers that continually finds himself moving past an incident without really getting involved in it. And that's a knack in itself for a budding young race car driver looking to build a career, as we pick up Bailey Evans now up to P8, or sorry, falling down to P8. Rob Bowden actually moving aside to defend down at turn 4 Miller Corner as Bowden steps up into P7. Right behind them as well, Robbie Griffiths there in the 75 Sim Sports entry. He wants to get a piece of this battle, and a good scrap starting to form here between Evans and Bowden as they climb out of Siberia. Nothing between there and the Antarctic, pretty much. except a lot of ocean. That's why the Siberia breeze, it's pretty famous out of Phillip Island, gets a bit cold when the wind picks up. Oh, Griffiths getting real close down there at turn 10, just pulls it up on the anchors at the base of the hill.
Robbie Griffiths is a formidable driver. He's actually one of our... There's a few drivers within the field that I've seen this season. They're actually within sort of the more experienced side of the category. Races in Veterans, I think it is, on a Thursday night as well. I've seen some really good flash of the pan performances from him as the guys ahead of him actually go toe-to-toe again.
Oh, look at this. Bailey Evans trying to go all the way around the outside through turn 1. He's going to make it stick and have the inside line into Southern Loop at turn 2. He scrubs across the curb, runs it a little bit wide, and tries to drive away from Bowden, who's going to get the toe from him. There's a good scrap forming just a little bit further behind these guys as well. Will Ryan, Andre Youssef, and I believe Anthony Marzoka a little bit further off the back. Oh, no. Down at turn 4. Evans. Now, did he get help there? I just looked at the timing tower for a second. There doesn't look to be any damage on his car. Well, watch this here. Bowden weaving behind the Evans car. No, he just pinched it on the downshift by the looks of it and spun it to the outside of the circuit. So that undoes that battle, and that'll send Evans down to 13th and gives a bit of a battle on for the boys to battle it out for remaining 7th and 8th position, Bowden and Griffiths. Luke just giving us a bit of a show reel of what Racecraft Simulations are up to on their website. I was out there today having a chat with Johnny, picked up a new Racecraft Simulations branded office chair.
Fastest office chair in the business, Chris?
Yeah, it went together quickly too. It was it's actually pretty comfy. So a great addition. That's just me tidying myself over until I can build my rig, really.
I can hear the ego. We were talking about that pre-stream, ladies and gentlemen. The enthusiasm to get back in the seat and get back out there racing from Chris Mitchell's incredibly high. Much like Damon Woods is starting to get a little bit enthusiastic about potentially a move here.
Yeah, he's closed right up onto the back of Josh Stewart as they race him out here. Just about to cross the halfway point here in this short, sharp sprint race. 15 minutes only the journey before we get to the feature race just after that. As Delisle still holds a pretty nice lead. He's at the handy hot lap too at 15.9, the only driver except for Damon Woods clocking the 15s. And Damon's best lap previously at 15.94. But last lap he was closing. So was Josh Stewart closing as well. So I wonder a small mistake from Tim Delisle perhaps has allowed that gap to come down a little bit. Whether that will get them in the toe enough to then really give him a bit of a hassle and hurry him up. I love that shot as the cars come flying over the crest at turn 9 up at Lukey Heights.
Yeah, and also got half an eye on this battle up at the front. Another big one that's really forming is between Andre Youssef and Will Ryan, a little bit deeper in the pack. They just about went side by side coming off the last corner as well. And looking to the inside, I've seen a few lock breaks, a few pinches, a few bits of puffs of smoke from Will Ryan at the moment. So he's definitely under pressure. They were a little bit close to the pack in front of them on the previous lap. So mistakes and hard fighting. And I'm wondering whether or not Will Ryan might be carrying a touch more wing out of these two as well.
Jumping on board with Will Ryan on the Pace Syndicate entry for just a moment, the 11 car. He's been a stout competitor in this championship and been with the FRG series for quite some time as well, was racing in F3A. I can't wait for that to come back. I'm going to get involved, I promise you that, with the F3A series when that makes a return. As we're trying to kind of eyeball how the wings look on these cars to get a judge for where the downforce package is set. Look at broadcaster jumping on to say his wing looks lower, so we can get a look at that there. So if he's running a lower wing, he should have better straight line speed, but then he'd be sacrificing a little bit in the corners, which kind of gives reason to how Andre Youssef is right on top of him right now as they come out of turn 10. And if Ryan can hold on to it, he might be able to get there, but Youssef just gets a great run out of 10, pulls alongside by the pit road entrance and actually gets in front as they come onto the main straight. Now, is the downforce package better for Will Ryan than he can scooch on past? Either it is or it used the DRS.
That's definitely a DRS activation.
But you can see the size of Will Ryan's rear wing compared to Andre Youssef behind. It's a sizable difference between the top plane of the wing and how low it sits on the car of Ryan's car. You can actually see there's more gap between the top edge of the wing and the side panels compared there, side by side with Andre Youssef. Don't need to do a comparison, there it is. So Ryan seemingly struggling with this in race conditions, although he's probably got a faster car in a straight line. through the corners. He is getting monstered by Andre Yusuf, who wants to have a crack. He's going to have that inside line into turn 6.
Yeah, now Yusuf really needs to stretch those legs and see if he can't get a little bit further away. And Anthony Marzocco might actually be his biggest ally in this one because he's going to force Ryan to go a little bit defensive as well. Because as soon as they get back to that straight, you can better believe that Will Ryan's going to maybe punch another DRS activation and go surging forwards again.
It's really difficult to race against a guy who's got a faster car in a straight line. Oh, look at that big move there from Margetts. Stuck the nose up the inside and hoped to make it stick on the inside of Anthony Marzocco at turn 10. Margetts gives up the spot again in the simrigs.com DPR entry. And he'll settle in behind them as they hit the main straightaway here. 4.5 minutes left to go here in the sprint race for the Racecraft Simulations S5000 series. The final round here from Phillip Island.
Is it just me, or are these guys topping out and sitting on that rev limiter for an extended period of time down the front straight as Margetts actually gets the move done on Marzocco coming into turn number 1 as well? I feel like they're clipping quite a lot because you see them, they get a long way down the straightaway, so I'm thinking they're punching DRS activations, and because the wings folded back, they just haven't tested the car for that sort of trim. Maybe they need to add a little bit more gearing. It's really, really tricky to get that right.
It's a fine balance as well, especially when you're racing in a pack and getting the toe. As we've got someone off there. There's Robbie Griffiths in the Fishy Motorsports entry, just having to do a donut to spin it back onto the track. What happened here for Robbie? He's fighting with Rob Bowden, and that's for 7th or 8th on the racetrack at the time. Coming out of turn 4, just buzzes the rear tyres. See you later, Robbie.
Don't know if you've ever heard the description of the throttle in these cars. It's not a smooth power curve. It's not how that gets applied. It's binary. Is the best description I've ever heard. Because all of a sudden the car's underneath you, everything's stable, it's working really, really well, and then all of a sudden it's shot around in a flash. They're really, really difficult to balance that throttle. So the guys you can see at the front here that are driving so similar together in terms of their lap pace, that is a skill to behold, Chris. It's really, I can't do it. I'm not capable of it, I can tell you that much.
Yeah, it's a bit of a light switch situation, very similar to driving a Formula Ford 1600, the old Kent engine cars. The throttle is either on or off, and there's nothing in between that is going to make any difference, because the 1969 Ford technology didn't really understand the use of the word power band, so it was either flat chat or nothing with those cars. All trouble for Anthony Marzocco. That's got a real banged up front wing there for his entry. And what happened here for Marzocco? Well, we've caught the early stage of it. The wing's actually intact by that point. We'll catch it again. So off the end of the main straightaway into turn 1. I'm going to go back a long way on the replay here. Oh, big spin through turn 1. Bit uncharacteristic, and that... But see, that didn't seem to damage the front wing, so he's done it again elsewhere, and it's gotten all folded up on that front right corner. But nonetheless, Marzocco down to 14th as a result. And your lead trio still line astern as they were. Delisle from Stewart from Woods. 1, 2, and 3 with 2 minutes to go.
Yeah, they always try and settle in, and unfortunately for Marzocco, if you actually dig back a couple laps ago when Margetts was down the inside of it, turn 1, he had a big old lift in, so there was, I think he's got a problem with being able to keep the rear tyres underneath him on an extended run, so whether or not this thing was as trimmed out as it possibly could be, and he has 2 different setups to go to with that heavier fuel load, we'll never know.
Well, watching that one there, you never want to have a blinking car around you, and we just jumped on board with Bailey Evans right as Will Ryan disappeared from existence for a split second, and that's enough to make any sim racer very nervous at the wheel, not knowing exactly where you can place your car. Bailey Evans just decides to deal with the matter himself and just gives Will Ryan a bit of a tap through turn 4. Now, this is a bit of sportsmanship here. He's waiting. He's doing the right thing, and Will Ryan blinks on the way past as well. Bit of an odd set of circumstances there. You'd hate to be in that situation of Bailey's.
Yeah, where do you position the car? How do you predict? You just drive based upon where he was driving the previous lap? Do you back off a fraction? Well, I mean, what race car driver ever wants to back off a fraction, really? So, yeah, there's never a good decision to make in that one. Yeah, that's the problem. Well, you haven't met them yet. That's because they all live over in New Zealand. No, sorry, not New Zealand, my apologies. The United States of America, and they drive NASCAR. They all get in line and they push each other down the straight.
Well, Will Ryan having trouble now as well with the Pace Syndicate entry. He was off the racetrack and taking the Rallycross option line here at Phillip Island as Yusuf under a bit of pressure from Rob Bowden for 7 and 8 on the road. Yusuf's make a great comeback since he's got caught up in that incident at the start, but Bowden's going to go toe-to-toe with him almost bashing sidewalls as they race him out of Southern Loop. And even then, Youssef trying to hold that outside line through Stoner Corner, knowing he gets the inside into turn 4 at Miller. And they're still going to try and go side by side. Big save from Rob Bowden, trying to get on the power. And the back end just denied his request entirely. And he had to scoop the car up and save it. We actually ran out of time in the process of all this. I think this will be the checkered flag for Tim Delisle, who's held it together since leading away from the pole. The sprint race. And the next draw of blood for points is going to go the way of Tim Delisle here in the S5000 series.
A really nice, clean, consistent opening race from these guys. Again, I think it might kick off a little bit more on the features. Going to be a little bit more time to look after the tires, look after the fuel levels. A little bit more strategy in terms of when to use those push-to-passes, but it's certainly all kicked off in the heat.
Yep, Josh Stewart coming home in second. Bit of a drag race here. Steve Jansen trying to get a good battle on with Reese Margetts to race him to the line. Just misses out and comes home P10. So just doing a bit of the quick mental math at the moment. I'm going to perform a bit of mental gymnastics here. The gap originally coming into tonight's round was 732 for Damon Woods and 656 for Tim Delisle. 76 points to Jenny. Delisle claimed pole. Woods was third, so there's 2 points back to Tim Delisle, and now Delisle claims the win and Woods third again, so there's 6 points. So the gap is 68 points. Woods still needs to finish the race, and I think barely just has to finish the race. Like if he comes out in 15th or 16th, it's championship confirmed for Damon Woods here.
Yeah, so will we see that adjustment from him? I just don't think so. Based upon what I've seen, the biggest thing I've seen coming out of Damon Woods previously is when something happens in those early stages, he's the kind of driver that's like, all right, that's it. A little bit of red mist. It's generally quite controlled red mist, actually, from him. He does a phenomenal job driving back through the field, but he loves coming from the back a little bit sometimes. It more fires him up, I think, than anything else. So I would actually expect him to probably not change things up too much. I think he'll just leave it all out on the track as he normally does.
There a check of your sprint race results. Tim Delisle taking the win. 3.5 tenths of a second further behind was Josh Stewart. Then Damon Woods further back there in third. Greg Olsen had a relatively quiet race. We didn't see much out of Greg in P4. 3.9 seconds adrift of the race lead and 9 tenths clear of Jason Sieg holding down P5. The rockstar Shane Russell holding P6 from Andre Youssef, who mounted a great comeback drive after getting caught up at the start, back to P7. Rob Bowden from 14th to 8th. Reese Margetts to 9. And Steve Jansen rounding out our top 10. It's interesting you say that about Damon Woods and about how he might drive just that little bit more conservatively and might not risk too much, but will just get the job done. He actually claimed the Australian Formula Ford Championship E-Series in the 9th round, and said in the post-race interview that he doesn't have to worry about the final run now, and he can come out and just send it, knowing that he's probably got it wrapped up on points. And I'm sure he's probably doing the math right now while sitting in waiting for the feature race. I think we might see a bit more gusto from Damon Woods, which would actually be exciting to see what he can really deploy with this car.
This car and this track combination as well, because, you know, we look at it, you see the MotoGP racing when it comes here each and every year. It's phenomenal to watch in terms of those tyre wear with the supercars as well. Just when you come to Phillip Island, you want to see overtaking because it's long, it's fast, it's flowing, and I really think that the S5000s have got the ability to show that. And instead of it just being a big old draft fest as it tends to be in some of the lower formulas, in these it takes that skill, it takes that execution still on the top side. But I would absolutely love to see some elbows out for the last round of the season, because then it's just a celebration of what the series has been all year long, and for me that's the biggest factor.
Shout out to Dave Roberts, who's unable to join us this evening as he's out traveling, is off in the NZ having a bit of fun, and instead we get Scott Rankin joining us in commentary. So Dave just decided he's going to watch while he's on holiday, and he's going to join in the comment section in the chat of our live stream as well. Here's a check of what's on offer by Racecraft Simulation. See that PT1 right there? That we nicknamed that the Cage when it was being prototyped, and I'm pretty excited the fact that John's actually building another one at the moment in a very custom color. It looks something like a sprint car chassis, as that's what it was kind of loosely based off of, but it's an entire full motion rig housing everything in one location, sitting on top of those motion actuators. Of course, price on application, and if you have to ask, you can't afford it. That's all you need to know about that one.
Look, if my wife doesn't know about it, then I can afford it, I think is the better way to go about it.
It's a surreal experience, actually. I got to drive in the cage for a little bit, and you know, we're used to triple monitors. We spoil ourselves in the sim racing world, but with an ultra-wide monitor inside that thing, with all the other things going on with the design of that rig, it is absolutely phenomenal. And I'm stoked to see that people are actually purchasing them and getting them custom built on their own specification build-up from Racecraft Simulations, because it's a fantastic rig, and just one of the things that Johnny can do. He even built an actual sprint car simulator using a wrecked sprint car frame for a local driver here in Western Australia to do some training on iRacing between rounds and during the winter off-season.
And he's just got such a passion for it. I've actually commentated a couple of endurance events for him now as well, and it tends to fall into asking him about the rig, what's going on, the number of people. The endurance events that actually run over there out of the Racecraft Simulations area is they generally pair a more experienced driver with a lesser end driver to sort of balance things out, so you haven't just got one team that's walking away. But yeah, effectively, right? But it's about camaraderie, and then there's all the bickering back and forth. It's just a big community environment over there, so when I finally do make my way over to the western side of the country, Racecraft is actually penned in on things to see and do within Perth. So.
Oh, fantastic. You can't come all the way over here as a sim racing fan and not go see what he has on offer. And you always got to sneak in and get a pat of Stitch, the shop dog, as we get ready for the feature race coming up here for the Racecraft Simulations Motorsports Australia Esports S5000 series for the final time this season. Now, it's taken almost 30 weeks to get to this point, Scott, with 3 championships on offer with FRG in this recent period, with the Australian Formula 4 Championship, the Motorsport Australia FIA F4 eSports Cup, and the Racecraft S5000s. This marks the end of a long journey for a lot of drivers who've bought their way into this series. Here's your starting grid. Tim Delisle starting on the pole with Josh Stewart on the outside front row. Damon Woods will start from grid number 3. Keep in mind he just needs to finish somewhere around 15th and he will secure the championship tonight. Greg Olsen on the outside of row number 2 in position number 4. Jason Sieg will start alongside Shane Russell on the 3rd row of the grid. Andre Youssef and Rob Bowden will line up on row 4, with Reese Muggetts and Steve Jensen coming out of row 5 tonight for the feature race. Robbie Griffiths in the Fishy Motorsports entry will line up alongside Bailey Evans on row number 6. And then behind them we'll see Will Ryan and Drew Collins on the 7th row, with Paul Rogers, Anthony Marzocca and Miguel Crespo. We'll see them all from grid number 17 as we put the starting order away and we get ready for a big 50 minutes here from Phillip Island.
Keep your eyes to about halfway down the field. It was the tail end on that last start where there was a little bit of chaos, but I reckon it's going to be the middle. It's this one. This is where you're going to have to keep your eyes.
So everyone gets away from the grid relatively nicely, and the field is rocketing down to turn 1 for the first corner of a big feature race here from Phillip Island. Round 10 of the Racecraft S5000 E-Series. Delisle leads the field into Southern Loop for the first time. Right behind him, Josh Stewart. Woods is on the outside, defending just a little bit from Greg Olsen, who's gotten a great start and closed up onto his tail end as they make their way around the opening lap.
Relatively safe and sedentary until we get down here, and then there's that fraction of 3 wide right in around Reese Muggetts in the middle of that pack. But they also wanted to feed in there. There was not too much bickering, and yeah, it was a little bit patient. Maybe they're all thinking about their tyres. Maybe they're all going, we've just been on warm tyres. Might lay back just a little bit. It's good to see.
Of course, with the long race distance in this feature race, a heavier fuel load is more than likely to be on board these cars as they try and set out their pit strategy. They will need a pit stop to get them to the finish. Oh no, it all unfolds down to turn 10. Ryan and Griffiths caught up in an incident at the bottom of the hill as they got on the brakes coming out of Lukey Heights for the first time. But the leader on lap number 1 is going to be Tim Delisle. Jason Sieg on screen trying to go around the outside. Is that a slow-moving Andre Youssef, or has just been pipped on the exit of the final corner? And that will see Sieg getting the inside line into turn 1, but it's going to see Yusuf trying to defend as they head into Southern Loop. Jason closes the door in his face and claims another 6th spot. Andre Yusuf going to have to do some work there throughout the rest of this race.
But how about this start from Rod Bowden? Started out at P8, he's got all the way through to P number 5. Now he's going to see if he can hang on to this one. What happened to Robbie Griffiths on lap 1? No, I really love seeing Robbie Griffiths do quite well. It was a check-up from the car ahead of him into MG, unfortunately. And them's the brakes.
It's unfortunate there. Will Ryan just got a bit out of shape and jumped on the skids. And Robbie Griffiths just missed the invitation, missed the opportunity to dodge him and speared into the back of that one. Let's check out a bit of the start action here from Rob Bowden on the tanked SRT entry. He started down the order. I think it was position number 8. A great start from Bowden. He actually got a good jump on Yusuf and blows right up onto the back to Shane Russell and immediately jumped to the inside of him as they got down into turn 1. And look at this, straight to the left-hand side. A defending, B getting on the offensive up the inside of Jason Sieg to try and grab that spot again. Another spot up there for Rob Bowden off the race start. A fantastic start for him.
Yeah, but how good was the reaction time? That was the key to that start. Yeah, sure, the middle phase of the start was really, really good. There was no real major wheel spin, got off the line quite well, but the reaction time was on point. I guarantee you he had the best reaction time in the field, just how much ground he gained.
It's a Valtteri Bottas style circa Red Bull ring a few years ago. Oh, a bit tight there with Bowden and Yusuf down at turn 4. I think they touched a little bit at the apex of the corner, and that puts Yusuf back behind Rob Bowden. He's getting the elbows out, trying to get racy here. As Bowden up 2 spots from where he started, from 8th to 6th. As we take a look at the 2 simrigs.com boys. Rhys Magetz and Bailey Evans, 9 and 10 on the racetrack at the moment, right behind Shane Russell, holding on to P8 as they come down towards turn 10.
Yeah, and have a look at the squabbling up and down the field now. So now everyone's settled themselves down. Tire pressures and tire temperatures have come up to standard. Sieg took no prisoners really getting by Bowden. He knew that his race sort of depended upon getting that spot back as soon as he possibly could and trying to stick with that lead bunch. He's now a little bit adrift. I tell you what, it's going to be Yusuf who'll get up another cracked into turn 1 on Bowden as well.
Great shots from the outside of turn 1, catching the whole field racing around here. Just a few minutes down in this long feature race. So how's the racing from Rob Bowden, though? Whoa. He stayed right under the rear wing of Andre Yusuf until the final minute and then dived to the inside of Southern Loop, but still couldn't get the move done. Yusuf is just finding grip where it shouldn't be out there and being able to pull it out. Bowden goes to the inside again down at turn 4, last of the late breakers. Gives Andre just a little bit of room, who gets a bit squirrely on the exit there. Rob Bowden still holding on to this spot. Yusuf is doing everything he can to try and get around and get clear, but the battle does resume.
Yeah, so remember the previous lap, there was a little bit of contact in that one, and it was because Bowden was actually a lot further ahead when they got down there, although he's a fraction deep as well. That time by, Andre Yusuf was a fair bit further ahead. He was in control of where they positioned their cars. He was in control of the line that they were both going to have to take through that corner if they were to go too wide, and he pinched him off a little bit, didn't open the steering wheel up enough. That caused the rear tyres to wiggle around a little bit. Now he's got to manage that. Remember, anytime you ever talk to a V8 supercar driver on iRacing, they say micro lockups and micro wheel spins. It's all about minimizing that tire temperature. So for Andre Yusuf, in about 30 minutes time, will we be regretting that one slide? Well, you're going to have to stay tuned to find out.
We've seen that the tyres on this car are somewhat forgiving, not quite as much as you'll see from an F3 inside the iRacing platform, but definitely something that can be something you have to keep an eye on over the course of a 50-minute race here. Yusuf holding on to P6. Look at Shane Russell. He's getting the elbows out on Rob Bowden now. They're having a bit of a good squabble here, and right behind them sit Magetz, Evans, and Jansen. It's a good old freight train getting around here from Phillip Island.
I'll tell you what, you say to the lovely community we've got here as a part of FRG that I've never actually been over to the western side of the country. All of a sudden I'm getting tickets to this, I'm getting tickets to that. Apparently, I've been offered a choice between Speedway and drag racing, Chris. I know what you'd say, but I think I might have to take the Speedway.
Well, I commentate both, so it doesn't matter to me, actually. I'll sit you on either one if you make your way over to Perth, and you can come hang out at the Motorplex for an evening. On board with Steve Jansen for just a moment there as he made his way through the final corner, setting chase. He's back there in the 11th spot right now, staring down the rear end of Bailey Evans. We go back to the pointy end of the field. Delisle leading nicely. Josh Stewart is proving very handy at the moment, sitting there in second. Take a look at the live timing, and it is Stewart as your fastest driver on track, a 16.2. Best lap of the race from Josh, last time a 16.5, to Tim Delisle 16.6. Josh is getting a little bit of that toe and staying in touch. Meanwhile, Damon Woods is not really making anything happen back there in third, although he actually looks to be under a bit of pressure from Greg Olsen further behind in P4.
Have a look at the lap time from Stewart as well. I mean, he's definitely got pace in there, whether or not he is actually just holding himself back that fraction. But also have a look at the difference in terms of lap times from the sprint to the feature. That fuel is definitely playing a big factor. About 3/10 to 4/10 of a second down, half a second in some cases in terms of that peak lap speed, particularly when you have a look at Tim Delisle. He's down about half a second because he's got no toe and has had no toe thus far. So that sort of tells a little bit of a story. I'm worried about Damon Woods drifting a little bit. Maybe he is just trying to conserve the time. Maybe he will come back. The car will come back to him as the race sort of progresses through this middle stint. And also really enjoying this drive from Andre Youssef. I would say the sprint race favoured the guys who ran lesser wing. Now that we've got a little bit more fuel on board, that weight, it might actually build itself in the slightly bigger wing angle, maybe the better place to be.
I'm sure you would remember as well, on nights where Damon Woods has been in a position like this, he seems to play the game very well in just sitting back and letting the race come to him. And when I'm sure when we get to those pit stops in that final 20 minutes or so of the race, we'll start to see Damon Woods pick up the pace a little bit. And what we've seen pretty commonly from these cars is the last lap of the race always ends up being the fastest lap of the race. When they run down the fuel load right down towards the end and the tyres come in pretty solid, they start to look fantastic, and the lap times really get better at the end of the race. When the pressure comes off a little bit, you don't have to worry about other cars.
Yeah, one of the big things as well about I've seen Damon Woods drive a fair bit more than I think most of the other drivers are actually in this series. About the only other driver I've seen a fair bit out of is actually Andre Youssef. That's just, nature of the beast, really. You can't commentate them all, you can't see them all. The big factor about Damon Woods, I've seen a lot of GT3 driving on iRacing from him. Very good at looking after the tyre. When the other guys around him, there's sort of 3 or 4 guys that are similar to him in terms of pace. Very smooth, doesn't overpressure the tyre, doesn't push too hard too soon. The other drivers around him tend to wear that tyre off a little bit. Most of the time he tends to be leading. Dirty air is a big factor in that, but very good at looking after his tyres, which says to me very good on the handiwork.
Being smooth is a big key in these cars, and it doesn't really translate to outright pace, but it starts to show its head when you get into those longer runs, and especially in the high-powered cars on slippery and hot racetracks. I mean, we're not looking at a seriously hot racetrack right now, only 25 degrees surface temperature as we ride on board with Bailey Evans, who's shown as one of the more aggressive drivers in the series this time around for the Racekraft S5000. There's a look at your conditions at the moment. Of course, we run real-time road conditions here at Phillip Island, so sitting in the late afternoon, 5:30 almost from the Phillip Island circuit. 18 degrees ambient temp, 25 degrees track temp, just only slightly on the warm side, and that'll be helping the cars maintain traction longer throughout the race. But it's still that tyre degradation as the cars start to lighten up, and you get a little bit of a window of negative deg where the fuel load burning off actually negates the tyres wearing out for just a little bit until they get around to the end of the race.
Is this a little bit of smarts now going on from Damon Woods? I think Greg Olsen's actually just driven by him. I'm trying to get a track on how many DRS activations these guys have sort of gone through at the moment, because I get the feeling Olsen might have pushed one, and I get the feeling Josh Stewart as well might have also been another driver who was looking to press on a little bit there with the DRS activations. So keep your eyes on that. The games might be starting to play. Yeah, don't want to burn them too early, but switched on a little bit. Might have popped it open.
There's your answer. There's the DRS flat down for Greg Olsen. That gave him the straight line speed. Of course, the DRS on these cars being the Formula Renault 3.5 in iRacing works a little differently to what you expect from the world of Formula 1. The DRS actually moves the upper plane of the wing downwards to stall the wing out, allowing them to gain a bit of extra straight line speed and close up those moves. That did put Olsen back up into P3. Damon Woods will have to settle for sitting back there in P4 for the moment. Still keeping an eye on that time clock and watching until we get down to the pit stop where the race starts to unfold a little bit more.
Yeah, so it's time to sort of press on from Olsen and Wood. You know, they've dropped 3 seconds, 3.5 seconds back now from that lead group. So time to start pressing on. But also have a look at how Joshua Stewart attacked that. They got out to that 3 seconds sort of mark, and then Stewart's gone all of a sudden gone, I want to lead this thing. I want to press up. He got quite close. Wasn't quite able to get the move done, but he's starting to think, okay, we've got a little bit of room. I want to lead. I think I'm faster. I think I'm better on the tyres. It's time for me to press on. So you're going to see a little bit of that now, and then you've got to keep an eye on this battle pack as well, because everyone wants to lead in this pack.
There can only be one that can hold the front of that group, and that right now is Reese Margetts, as Evans has a big look up the inside of Rob Bowden. Oh, and they touch. Oh, Bowden. He spun. Did he collect it or did he get cleaned up? But look at the front wing. That tells the story. So someone helped straighten Bowden out on the exit of turn number 4 there. Here's Evans firing it up the inside nicely. A little bit of a touch there helped turn Bowden around, and then whack. Thanks for the help from Shane Russell to help correct that car. And has Shane copped any damage as a result out of that?
Yeah, big mark on the left front corner of his wing. So you might actually see him pit this lap, get that wing changed, because that is absolutely going to be hampering his race. Yeah, you can see it's just all bent out of shape. No, he's going to continue on. This will be a siding lap. How bad's the damage? What's it like? Yeah, he is just a parachute in a straight line, I think, at the moment. He's absolutely had to punch a DRS activation to stay ahead there.
Yeah, that's going to be creating all sorts of dramas for Russell on a very aero-dependent track. You don't want to have any extra drag holding the car back, but Russell's going to push on, and I'm sure he's probably just looking at the clock, looking at the fuel load, and thinking if he can just get it a little bit deeper into the race, just live with the damage for now, then he can get to that pit stop window and help him out. Because if he has to take a double stop, to an extent, there's almost no point.
Have a look at the brake locking immediately as well. So he's really having to overdrive this car to stay ahead. Track position is going to be relatively important. He needs to stay ahead because if he falls back, making the overtakes is actually incredibly difficult around here as soon as the speed... Yeah, look at the overspeed coming up from Steve Jansen. So there is definitely a problem. And Steve's like, right, well, this is ruining my race. I'm going to get on with things. And Shane's saying, well, my race is relatively ruined, so deal with it.
And the key here for someone like Steve Jansen is he's just got to be patient enough to pick the right time to make the move and not ruin his or Shane's race any further. Here's Damon Woods right on the rear wing of Greg Olsen as they head down the main straight. Woods is not pulling out to try and make the move, though. It sounds like he's trying to hold on to that spot and just maybe sit back where he is, try and keep some of those DRS activations in the back pocket for when he might need them later in the race. We're yet to hit the halfway point. Still a long way left to go here in this feature race. Here's Jansen up the inside of Shane Russell for P9 and puts the walking wounded DFR Team Purple entry of Russell back to P10.
Yeah, so they got this job done, and then the other problem was that Miguel Crespo, I think it was, that was immediately in behind Shane Russell as well, was getting quite racy as well. So now he's got to defend that one. So yeah, he's definitely walking wounded. I get the feeling the lap time, it's either going to be the next 2 laps. So he's right on the limits in terms of things. So not too far to go. Got to manage it. Got to get it there.
On board with Damon Woods as they come out of the bottom of MG at turn 10. Start to wind in the throttle so carefully through this loaded part of the circuit. It's so easy to light up the rear tyres and spit the car off into the sand trap on a one-way ticket to the fence. Look at the toe that he gets on the back here. Hasn't used a DRS activation. That's important right there from Woods, but he closes right up onto the back of Olsen. I'd be interested to see. I don't think he's keeping the hammer down. I'd say Woods is actually lifting to stay behind Olsen, because by rights, with that much toe, he should be able to pull out and at least get somewhat alongside before the air starts to slow the car up. He is playing some sort of game right now to stay behind Greg Olsen and just run this clock down.
Yeah, I can tell you Miguel Crespo as well just burned a push to pass to get his way past Shane Russell. So Russell's now at the tail end of that group, fallen to 11, and it's yeah, absolutely starting to race strategy. But again, put yourself in Damon Wood's shoes. Doesn't need to win, Doesn't need a podium, just needs to finish this race. So he's not racing someone he doesn't need to right now. Yeah, he's there. What's the biggest thing that he can do right now is he can put himself on a lot of risk trying to make some overtaking. You know, there is risk. Yeah, every opportunity to make an overtake does come with some inherent risk. If he sits here and he fuel saves, he's not taking a lot of risk, and yet he's still making some advantage out of it. And that's why I say to drivers, whenever they're in this situation, battling someone relatively similar pace, what advantages, what little things can I be doing? Sometimes it's tire saving, sometimes it's fuel saving, sometimes it's pushing them along. When you are so close together in pace like these guys are, you find other ways to pull yourself to the head and give yourself other advantages, and that's what he's doing right now.
And we've seen from Woods in rounds gone past in this series that he's been very good around that pit stop time. And whether it's being able to save and go a little bit longer and have to fuel up less come the time he does have to go to the pit lane, or just simply executing the pit stop quicker than everyone else. So we'll see whether he can play into that part, but they are starting to really drop off the lead pair right now. Delisle and Stewart are 5 seconds up the road.
Yeah, that's certainly a big issue. They dropped 0.2 of a second on the previous lap. Jason C, that's just in behind these guys as well, they did pull a 1/10 of a second out. So everyone's sort of relatively close together. I've got C, Yusuf and Margetts all within less than 1/10 of a second on their most recent lap time as well. And have a look at Crespo starting to get aggressive as well.
Yeah, Crespo and Jansen having a bit of an argument over P10 on the racetrack. P9 actually it is, as we ride on board with Miguel Crespo. Coming out of Siberia, closes up with the toe through this fast flowing section around the back at Phillip Island. Then they climb up to Lukey Heights and then dive down at MG to turn 10. He didn't get close enough to try and make anything happen, but here's where he has another opportunity, clicking up through the gears while fully loaded through these fast left-handers and wrapping around on the main straightaway. It's 31 minutes 50 to go here in your feature race for the S5000s, and Crespo actually dropped off a little bit from the back of Jansen, but now gets that massive toe down the main straight. I think he might actually have the DRX activated. He does. Wing is down and shoots to the inside to grab the spot from Jansen.
Yeah, and pit stop cycle has now started as well. So we were talking a little bit earlier on about a good friend. Sorry, I've just lost him. He's just dropped. Shane Russell. It was Shane Russell. I was about to say, I'm sure his name started with Shane. It was Shane Russell that copped the damage. Rob Bowden also copped damage as a part of that one. Between the two of them, they had one fully functional wing. It was the matching pairs. It was the other side of the wing that was damaged to Rob Bowden. So we can tell pit stop windows open. Both of those drivers in for a fresh front wing.
Yeah, as was Paul Rogers as well. It was the walking wounded coming down pit lane. Multiple front wings being claimed in the early stages of this feature race. So that brings out the opening of the beginning of the pit window. And I think you'll see these leaders stretch it out till the very end, because that maximizes the pace and shortens the average time that they can use during this period. So you'll see these guys running the tank down until the very last minute, or until the tyres start to really drop off. That seems to be the order of the day with these S5000 cars. There's the visual gap between your lead pair and then third and fourth, Olsen and Woods on screen. Tim Delisle making his way through Stoner. And we'll head down towards Miller's Curve. Now watch in the background for the next two to come. Just as they disappear from shot, then come Olsen and Woods.
Yeah, that continues to eke out. Something else that's sort of worthwhile noting as well is, don't forget our lap times around here, about that 1 minute 15 sort of stretch. Well, Paul Rogers at the moment is he's at the tail end of the field. He was circulating down the 18s, did have front wing damage. Whether or not he can pick up that pace again, but he was 2 seconds a lap off. He's only about 7-8 seconds ahead of the leaders, so that's what, four laps, and they're going to be on him. So that may actually trigger the round of pit stops as well.
I'm sure they'll be managing that, watching the relatives, just to see whether they're going to close up to these guys quickly and maybe have their run impacted, whether it's better to dive into pit lane. As we cross over the 20 minutes race time completed, 30 minutes to go here for the feature race of the Racecraft S5000 series. Jeez, gotten tongue-tied. For the final round here at Phillip Island, Olsen and Woods going side by side, switching and swapping almost as they go down the main straightaway. And Olsen still trying to hold on to that third spot as they head into the Southern Loop.
And it's just so awesome just sitting here and watching this track. I mean, being there in person, you look at the track and you just go, man, the facilities and everything that are going on here, it's so cool. But could you imagine riding a MotoGP motorcycle down into turn number 1 here and just tipping the bike over 250 kilometers an hour, just trusting the grip? It takes cojones. It just takes raw bravery. No, I'm done. No, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Just like top fuel motorcycle riders, you got to have a screw loose to do things like that. So, and all respect to those who go and do it, but no thanks. I'll stick to 4 wheels and potentially sitting in my living room doing it on a computer.
Well, you walk up to some of those riders, and they do it because my dad's actually clerk of the course stewards in northern New South Wales, motocross and whatnot. You walk up sometimes, you walk along the dummy grid of all the riders, you check their helmets they're on, sometimes you shake them, you hear a rattling going on. Yeah, that's the screws bouncing around the helmet. It's not something loose on the helmet.
Jason Sieg on screen, the Downforce Racing entry, holding on to P5 at the moment. He's in a bit of a no man's land here. He's 2.2 seconds off the back of Woods, who's up the road in P4, and he's finding himself some 5.5 seconds clear of Andre Yusuf, who's just making his way into turn 1 right now. While he's holding a solid race, I'm sure it's going to be a fairly lonely time out there for Jason Sieg as we go back to the Pursuit Sim Racing entry of Andre Yusuf, running a bit of Racecraft sponsorship on the side of the car this season. And he's having his own battle with Reese Marquez in 6th and 7th place as they head down towards Miller Corner.
It's a real shame too when you look a little bit deeper in the pack and you look at how well Rob Bowden did on that opening lap, all the way up to P5, only to find himself drifting a little bit in the middle of the race, lost the rear end of the car. That was potentially going to look like a very, very strong finish. I've seen some great drives from Rob Bowden, but that one was probably going to be one he would have sat down at the end of the day and gone, I'm really, really happy, I'm really proud of that. And I mean, he should be. That was a phenomenal opening lap from him. And unfortunately for him, now it's recovery time. What can he achieve? That's the target. When you pit and you're looking at the drivers all around you, and same way that Jason Sieg feels at the moment, you feel all at sea, you're not really racing anyone. That's the most tricky time to stay concentrated when you're actually racing the clock a little bit. So for Rob, tricky part of the race here.
Yeah, it's been a tough old season for Rob Bowden. He's got a best finish of 4th place that came a couple of rounds ago, round 8 of the championship. And he's had a couple of 0-point events and a couple of very low points events. 4 points at round 2, only 8 points at round 3. So that saw Bowden finishing way down the order after a very rough night at the races. That was back when we had 34 car fields as well in this championship, as the numbers slightly dwindled down throughout the course of the season, as they do in a non-qualify each week kind of format, in a sign up and race the whole season deal. You do see the numbers drop just a little bit as people kind of drop out of contention and subsequently fall out of love with the racing. But Bowden was looking to have a strong night here at Phillip Island. Just a nice way to kick some wind into your sails and have a good time in the final round. But unfortunately, not to be. He's down in 15th with, I hate to say it, little chance of getting much better from there.
Well, I mean, you'll pick up a couple spots, but yeah, I mean, when realistically, when the pit cycle's through, it's maybe going to be 12th that he's sort of squabbling over. He's got a little bit of pace. There's a couple drivers ahead of him that he's definitely quicker than, but the biggest issue he's got at the moment is we're looking Crespo, and is that Evans going toe-to-toe, and Jansen's going to buy into the background of this one as well.
Yeah, so Evans just sliding across the racetrack right on the hammer of Miguel Crespo as they come onto the main straightaway. Crespo now up to P8. Evans will get the toe as they hit the main straight. And look at him weaving across the racetrack, trying to play toe games, and that will see Evans pull out to the inside. And he's trying to drag Jansen with him. Steve Jansen's getting up and about here. It's great to see Steve having a great run. And he's going to try and go through with them, but cannot get across the racetrack to get up the inside of Miguel. We'll see Steve staying down in P10. Good bit of a battle for a moment.
Oh, man. They're just such a sight to behold, these cars, when you've got that glut of drivers that are sort of here and participating too, Chris, in terms of things. And you know, that's sim racing, isn't it? The nature of it, the differences to real world. We talk about it, we've seen drivers blinking tonight, we talk about equipment, we talk about screens, we talk about monitor issues, steering wheel issues, but the other one is availability and accessibility in terms of sim racing. You don't have to spend $10,000 and you don't have to try and get a car all together, and there's as many opportunities as you want to go racing, there's as many opportunities as you want to go practicing. And unfortunately, that lends itself to the psychology of, oh, well, if I'm not enjoying it, I'll find something else to do on a Tuesday night, which is disappointing because I really like the racing here. I think it's actually some of the highest standard racing that's available. Particularly, the reason FRG's done so well over a number of years is because they've got the standard right, they've got the formula right, they've got the cars right, they've got the drivers right, they've got the right people in the right places. So, you know, for what is a tricky car, for these drivers that are out here tonight, all 17 of them, it really, you know, from me to them, it's well done sticking with it, because this is not an easy car to drive. It's not an easy car to stick with. You guys have stuck with it for 30 weeks from start of the season all the way through to the end, man. And yeah, to FRG as well, thank you for having me on board for what's been a lovely year worth of racing, and an entertaining year worth of racing as well.
Well, don't over yet. We've still got 23.5 minutes left to go here in the feature race. Dave Roberts puts it beautifully, and I'm sure he'll comment on the live stream as we get through this as well. Sim racing is the new grassroots. It's a consumer's market, and the consumers are spoiled for choose, because for the same amount of money that it would take to just buy an entry-level single-seater like a Formula V or something like that, or a very old Formula Ford, you can have the top-of-the-line equipment that anyone can buy in the sim racing world, but then you have unlimited access. So you are spoiled for choice, with races going off every 15, 30, 45 and 60 minutes just in iRacing alone, with, you know, several thousand users online at any one point in time. There is a glut of racing out there that is so good to keep growing our sport, but this is where a lot of people get involved in. It's where they stay, because you get the seasoned veterans of sim racing that come in, and they have accessibility at any time, day or night, so they can juggle it between work, social commitments and the home life. And then you get the mix of the young gun that's looking to get seat time and build up their skills before they make a challenge at potentially a motorsports career, the likes of which we see from people like Damon Woods leading this championship coming into tonight, or your season leader, or race leader I should say at the moment, Tim Delisle, on screen here with 20 minutes to go, 22 minutes to go I should say, coming onto the main straightaway. We're watching for when he's going to make a dive into pit lane.
I think one of the factors you actually missed in that one, Chris, as well, is accessibility. That's a big thing. You see a lot more people with disabilities of some description able to get going and get racing in sim racing. Why? Insurance is a big factor. Safety is another one. You know, you're not going to injure yourself if you've already got something. I know a couple of people in terms of the NASCAR world and sim racing in Australia that don't have access to be able to press a brake pedal, but they can still go NASCAR racing where you don't use the brake pedal quite as much in NASCAR, is one of the things. But yeah, they're hand brakes, paddle brakes, you name it. They've managed to come up with a cheaper way to do it that's not necessarily engineerable or scrutinizable or safe in real world. And that's a big thing. You see drivers that they were previous champions, and something happened as the course of their life, they're able to keep going. And as well, the age gap as well. If you've got a family and you want to spend time with your family on every Saturday, Sunday, and you can't do it, you can spend one night a week and you get to still be a part of the racing community. That's a big part of it.
And that's why we love this platform and love going racing every week on Race Stars TV throughout these championships. As we land ourselves watching Tim Delisle still leading. Is he going to choose to go into pit lane this time by? Nope. Decides to go scooting on by with 20.5 minutes. That's 20 minutes, 30 seconds almost left on the clock. He's coming up behind Will Ryan, who's going to do the right thing and stay drivers right and allow your leaders to just scooch on by and go about their business. I'm really impressed with Josh Stewart at the moment. He's just sitting there nicely holding on a second. Hasn't looked super threatening to Tim Delisle, but is just staying in touch, staying in his mirrors, and just keeping that reminder going, to saying, Tim, I am here, and if you make a mistake, I will lead this race.
And that's the key factor, is he's close enough to be relevant should anything happen. There's no point in being three-quarters of a second away off the rear bumper of Tim Delisle, because then if something does happen, more often than not, you're actually taking avoiding action. More so than you are actually trying to push through that gap. You've really got to pick where to go. So he stayed close enough to stay relevant in terms of the toe. Is he getting a little bit of help? Yeah, he's getting a little bit of help in terms of that draft capability, but he's suffering from downforce in that first sector. He's doing a phenomenal job through the middle of the lap to just stay relevant, and then he's in there and he's in with a hunt, and he's going to have a fuel advantage when we get to this pit stop too, that's huge.
We're going to go back to the battle for third and fourth here. Greg Olsen and Damon Woods. Damon's still tucking up right behind it here. They've been glued together like this for quite some time. Jason Sieg has actually closed a gap to these guys. He was about 2.5, almost 3 seconds off the back, and Sieg is actually lapping, dare I say, quicker than third and fourth at the moment. Taking a look at our lap timing from the last few laps. Last lap says otherwise. Sieg at a 16.7, Woods at a 16.6. Olsen just clocking in his best lap of the race, a 16.566. But the gap tells the story that Jason Sieg is actually staying in touch here. 2 seconds only the margin from Olsen and Woods back to Sieg in P5, as they've now fallen almost 8 seconds off the race lead.
Yeah, so they've done a phenomenal job from Jason Sieg's perspective to stay attached to these guys. Remember that battle pack that we were talking about, probably about 10 minutes ago now, between Margets and Yusuf? They're still staying in touch with each other as well. So whether or not something can happen there. And then you've got the guys who have already pitted. The big issue for those guys who have already pitted, they're carrying that extra fuel around and have done so for an extended portion of this race at this point in time. Paul Rogers is about to go a lap down after he's just completed his pit stop at this point in time. I think we might be coming up on pit stops for our leaders.
Yeah, Shane Russell just going up the inside of Anthony Mazurka. Shane having already stopped in this race after copying some damage to the front of his car, starting to pick his way back through the field. Mazurka still yet to stop here. There's only 5 drivers who've completed a pit stop so far this race, as we just saw that disappear from your timing totem, as supplied by Luke at FRG at Race Stars TV. Here's Delisle and Stewart. Now, for a second there, that 1 changed to a 2. And that shows that Josh Stewart actually got a nose in front momentarily and led this race, if albeit for maybe 50 metres or so. But he led. He got his nose in front and forced the issue. Now, this could come down to something as simple as the way you enter pit lane and how aggressively you attack that pit lane entry to maybe force a lead change here. And if it goes his way, Josh Stewart could lead this race.
And I've seen a lot of pit lane entries here at Phillip Island come unstuck over the sim racing years. It's quite narrow. There's grass immediately on either side. You dip a tyre off into that. It's a little bit easier these days than it was probably 6 months ago, earlier in the year, with that grass physics change. But at the same time, it's not easy. This is one of those pit lanes where I want to pit out of sequence. I don't want to follow the guy ahead of me in, or I want to go a lap. Oh no.
Issue there for Andre Yusuf. He was just rejoining, and I think we just watched him get the back end out and go around. So here's Delisle into the pits. Stewart goes by and will take over the lead of this race. So your previous race leader, Tim Delisle, comes into pit lane. Jason Sieg follows him in. Olsen and Woods go by. So first and fifth are in pit lane. Greg Olsen assumes second place in the race, with Damon Woods just sitting right in his shadow. He's as close as he can comfortably be without running into the rear of the car right now, is Damon Woods. He is staying right in touch with Greg Olsen. Let's see what happened here for Andre Yusuf as they came out of turn 4. He just lit the rear tyres up, did he? He touched a bit of the dirt on the exit there. And the old iRacing stand on the brake with both feet to arrest the car. It's good to see that trick still works. And you can almost stop the full eventuality of the spin. But then he came around the next corner and he lost it again, trying to get on the power. Oh, Andre Yusuf having a day of it here with that Pursuit Sim Racing entry. Lost 3 spots as a result, and I'm sure he'll be somewhere looking for maybe pit road to try and get some new tyres after that.
How good's the camera in between the exhaust pipes? This is one of the ones I always love with the Formula Renault 3.5. It's a much maligned car in terms of drivability. Who's coming to pit lane this time? Just Olsen. Yeah, so Woods has saved enough fuel to kick on for a couple of extra laps. Josh Stewart's got another lap as well. So race leader Tim Delisle came in. Well, Stewart's gone 2 on by, so has Damon Woods. So those guys were definitely saving fuel. And this thing's about to come to life. I reckon you're going to see a lead change post-pit cycle.
Well, last time by, Josh Stewart clocked in a 16.3, and that was in clean air. So he previously held the best lap of the race, still does hold the best lap of the race actually, at a 16.294. But in clean air, Stewart, with that fuel load burning right off and the tyres still relatively in the window, it clocked a 16.3 in clean racing air. Greg Olsen comes out of pit lane after copping his service, and he emerges in P6. Now that has elevated Margetts and Evans 3 and 5. They've split your previous race leader, Tim Delisle, who's the first of the guys to have pitted, So 4 of your top 5 still yet to pit, and that's going to be interesting to see how that pans out, because I think the likes of Stewart and Woods have played a really smart game here, staying in touch, getting the tow, saving fuel, saving tyres, and now they get into this optimum window of the race where they can really put in the hot laps to try and close down the effective gap and maybe get the overcut done in the pit lane. Here's Josh Stewart now coming into pit lane. We'll get to see whether he's stationary for any different amount of time. I think it was 7.1 seconds was a stationary time for Tim Delisle. Damon Woods also into pit lane here. And there it was, 7.1 was the time for Tim Delisle. So we'll see what these two can pull in the pit lane and whether they make any impact on the run.
Mark Gatz is also in, but you know what? Bailey Evans has actually kicked on. Here comes Josh Stewart. He's out. He's at the pit lane. You know, he's going to have this. I think, no, Delisle's just barely got out ahead. Oh, there's nothing in it.
So Delisle came screaming up with a head of steam, and despite the best efforts of Josh Stewart, Delisle passed him with just all of that extra momentum on the main straightaway and reclaims the race lead. Now Delisle sees this happen. He goes, all right, it's go time. We took our pit stop, we got our service, and now we're on the home straight. 13 minutes to go here in the feature race for the final round here at the Racecraft Simulations S5000 E-Series from Phillip Island. And Delisle was pulled out almost a second on Stewart, who's very quickly got to get back into the habit of firing the car up and trying to stay in the tow.
So remember what you were talking about with those lap times and how critical it was to punch them in? 16.3 was just about his fastest lap of the race. Well, Tim Delisle absolutely matched it on his first flying lap after that pit stop. 16.329. Reference lap 16.331. There was 2,000ths between those two laps. In essence. Then it comes down to the pit lane entry and exit. Well, guess what? Tim Delisle found 0.2 of a second on his lap time coming into the pit lane and then out the other side. What did it look like on the way out? Well, this time by from Joshua Stewart, we get the lap to compare. It'll be his lap 29 is going to be a 1:18.694. And I tell you what, from Tim Delisle, his outlap was a 1:18.584. So it's about 0.3 from transit time, whether or not that's getting onto the limiter a little bit later, braking a fraction later, carrying more momentum all the way up to the line. There's another 10th found on the exit. And that's a warm-up lap as well.
And so it's just all about Tim Delisle, just nickel and diming Josh Stewart in second and just pulling out all those little 1%ers make the biggest difference in the long run. Now Josh has to work twice as hard to try and close the gap despite being stationary for a shorter amount of time in the pit lane. It didn't matter because Tim was quicker on the way in, quicker on the way out, and quicker on getting the car back in the groove. But Josh has managed to pull the gap back down to about 0.3 of a second. So Stewart is on the charge here. Keep in mind, Delisle probably hasn't had to use any of his DRS activations. I don't think Stewart has either, with 11.5 minutes left to go. We could see a good old dogfight to the end here for the S5000s.
Yeah, and you wonder whether or not they both punched them. As soon as one of them pit, they were both on them. They were using them just about everywhere just to try and get that little advantage that they possibly could. Have a look at the difference in their pit stop times as well. It was actually 0.2 of a second faster through the lane for Josh Stewart, but it was 0.1 of a second faster for Tim Delisle. So whether or not, again, it's just every little bits and pieces. Yeah, he punched the hole in the air. Yeah, he did all the hard work, but then he checked all of those boxes. Entry speed to the cone, speed into the box, dropping and getting away as quickly as possible and coming off of that pit lane speed limiter. 0.3 of a second gain. He's actually made about half a second when you compare all of that up, because that's how much time Josh Stewart took back out of him. Is that 0.2? So that's a phenomenal pit lane entry. So that might be studied post-race.
Further back as well, Greg Olsen sitting in the tow now with Damon Woods has actually just clocked the fastest lap of the race. A 16.118 for Greg Olsen last time by to take the purple lap, the hot lap of the race so far, behind Woods, who's managed to eke himself up into third place with 10.5 minutes left to go. I'm really excited to see whether Stewart can close this gap and put the fight on for the race lead, but the gap sits about 4.5 of a second, and a bit of a battle going on here between Jansen and Bailey Evans, who looks to the inside at Stoner Corner. Jansen's going to have the inside line at Miller, but pulls out of that battle and slots himself right in between Bailey Evans and Shane Russell sitting back there in P10.
Guarantee that both of these, yeah, I'm pretty sure that those DRS activations are now getting used if they weren't beforehand. Who was brave enough to get onto theirs as early as they possibly could? That's the real kicker, isn't it? How late do you use it? And the other thing is, remember, the DRS activations nearly run long enough to get all the way down to the other end of the straight. I think they actually time out sometimes in these cars. So, yeah, you got to be a little bit careful with not getting onto them too soon.
Followed Bailey Evans, making his way around onto the aforementioned front straight. 9.5 minutes left to go for the driver of the Simrigs entry. He's up 4 spots from where he started here in this feature race. He's been getting to work and he's been forced to work really hard to climb this order. He's got Jansen right behind him, who has a little peekaboo in the mirrors heading into turn number 1. Jansen up 1 spot from where he started. He started P10, currently holds P9. And you know what? They've both been made to look rather foolish right now. Miguel Crespo started 17th on the grid and is way up the road by about 6 seconds. Miguel's having a fantastic run here in the feature race. He's up 10 spots to be the hard charger of the race so far.
And you know what this comes down to, Chris? This just comes down to clean, consistent laps, not dogfighting, using his head. I don't think he's necessarily put together an amazing race. When you look back at this one from Miguel's standpoint, you might sit down and go, yeah, he sort of just dropped off the charts a little bit. We didn't really talk about him all that much. Well, that's exactly how he's done it. Got in, got out, no contact throughout the race. When everyone else about him was struggling and battling and squabbling over little bits and pieces of position, Miguel got the head down. Great job.
There's a bit of a look at how the pit stop strategy has gone here. You can see the likes of Delisle and C stopped earlier on lap 26. One of the earlier stops was from Shane Russell having to take advantage of, or not really take advantage, but repair the damage on the car down at lap 13. Earlier on in the race was lap 25. For Miguel Crespo, who's held a brilliant race so far. One of the later stops was Woods and Margetts down at lap 28. And some of the longest time spent stationary, Reece Margetts, 7.9 seconds, down to as low as 6.9 for Josh Stewart, who seemed to be, no he wasn't, Steve Jansen was the quickest of the top 10 there, 6.8 seconds stationary, sitting in the pit lane copying that refuel.
Oh, I tell you what, have a look at this battle pack now between Evans, Jansen and Russell. They're all going for it. I tell you what, Steve Jansen looks supreme on those brakes, and Yusuf's going to buy into the back end of this battle pack as well. So this isn't over with. Even though he's had that little half spin, put those tyres up. 7 seconds stopped in a box. How much tyre temperature do you think has fallen out of those rear tyres since then? Could he have something to say back to these guys at the tail end?
They'll sit there and hold their temp for quite some time. The good old heat soak on these machines as Jansen looked like he was having a bit of a peekaboo there, as old Evans is actually locked up at the bottom of the hill. So easy to do, and Jansen has to go around the outside to grab the spot from him. Great piece of responsive driving there from Steve Jansen, but now he's creating the tow for Bailey Evans, who's just going to happily sail on by once again, but they're both going to get monstered because Russell and Andre Yusuf are right in this fight as well. And we are almost 4 wide down the main straight. Andre Yusuf is going to have the tightest pinch, and Evans gets tags Shane Russell in the process. Now, was that as a result of Yusuf being on the inside into turn 1? Because it's a very high-speed corner to be going 3 or 4 wide as no. Cue the Benny Hill music. It's a comedy of error between, and it gets even worse. Evans, Russell, and then Robbie Griffiths all slamming into each other here at the southern route.
Well,
and now that's created a car upside down of Shane Russell, and we're outside of the blanket tow window. So there's a big expectation here that we're going to see those 2 fancy words popping up at the corner of our screen in just a moment. For Shane Russell, parked upside down here at Southern Loop, but they're all running off the racetrack trying to avoid him here. There's your race leaders, in fact, getting caught up in the sand trap. Tim Delisle and Josh Stewart both falling off the racetrack trying to dodge this car.
There's another car off as
well. saying oil on track. Does iRacing still simulate? It doesn't simulate oil on track yet, does it? As Tim Delisle, he managed luckily to squeak through that one, but man oh man, it could have got so ugly if they fired it into the fence, and I'm surprised that we haven't seen a safety car be called. And
I don't think we will. I actually don't think we will. I think it's handled. I think it's been escorted. Yeah. Yeah, so I don't think they wanted to, which is smart. I mean, you don't want to finish the season after what's been a cracking battle. You don't want to finish it under safety car, and there's nothing in this. I think this is going to be a racing incident.
Yeah, it's big, unfortunate moment there. Down into turn number 1. So now we've seen a blanket tow approval with 5 minutes remaining at the race. Here's a replay for Josh Stewart of he and Tim Delisle's perspective of the race. They came barreling into that corner, turn around and go, oh gee, there's a car there. They both darted to the outside and tried to cruise on by. And look at Delisle just scampering for any form of traction he could. Then we saw Olsen and Woods arrive on the scene. Now they both got through a bit nicer.
And I think it was Robbie Griffiths was the car that we actually saw piling into that one, unfortunately.
It was Robbie, yeah, unfortunately, in the Fishy Motorsports entry. He was kind of the innocent party in all of that.
Has that closed enough of the margin? You know what? It hasn't. There's still 5 seconds ahead, our leaders as well. So they lost about 4.5 to 5 seconds, but they're still hanging on to it. Just.
So here's Olsen and Woods battling it out for 3rd and 4th at the moment. Damon looking a bit racy on the back of these guys. They did make up a bit of that difference, but they were sitting back there from the leaders. But with 3.5 minutes left to go, our prediction showing Damon Woods has it all sewn up and probably doesn't need to worry about it now. He's just enjoying the last few moments of this race, battling it out with Greg. See how he's just holding right on his rear gearbox. Damon's still rolling off the throttle down the straight. I don't think he's really playing too hard of a game trying to get past Greg Olsen for 3rd.
I mean, what would you? The last thing you want to do is resolve a championship in a steward's office. So I think that's sort of going through his mind. It's just, okay, let's is he realistically trying to see how close for how long he can follow the car ahead? Because he might be targeting Guinness World Record to go along with the E-Series title.
For the longest distance spent following a 3rd place driver. Here's Reese Magetz and Miguel Crespo 6th and 7th on the racetrack. Imagine if Miguel can fire his way up into P6. Last time by, he clocked in at a 16.9. Marget's at a 17.1. He's actually lapping quicker than Reese in that Simrigs entry. And Miguel having a great drive here tonight from deep in the field. Whatever he's done with the setup of the car, or he's just gotten lucky and put his head down and gotten to work, he's doing a fantastic job of it as we pick up back tier race leader now. Tim Delisle, the positive sim racing entry, continues to lead this one out, and he's done a fantastic job so far tonight.
I tell you what, puts a stonking lap in at the very latest stages of this one. I reckon they're punching through the DRS activations now. There's nothing left in the tank. They don't need to protect them. Now it's punch it down every single straight that they possibly can because the time to use them has really run out. 16.003. 4,000ths of a second would have been a 15.999, and Josh Stewart right there with him not too far distant as well.
Yeah, he's doing a fantastic job of it, and that's pretty common to see in the late stages of these nights. There's been 2 other drivers who've claimed Grand Slam finishes in the round so far this championship. Damon Woods and Josh Stewart, and Tim Delisle, I don't think has claimed a Grand Slam finish by claiming pole, the sprint race, and the feature race win all in the same night. Damon Woods has done it twice so far this championship. Josh Stewart did it back at round 5 at Spa-Francorchamps, but since then it has been a bit of a mix and mash between Woods, Stewart and Delisle. At the moment, Tim Delisle looking to claim his first Grand Slam finish with all 3. The clean sweep, if you will, with 1 minute to go across the line. Barney has the white flag in the air as Tim Delisle scoots on past Will Ryan to get a lap done. There's Barney. I love it. I talk about Barney, and Luke always finds him on stream every time, as Delisle leads the way with 1 to run on his way to a clean sweep of the final round of the championship.
And there's still multiple battles to be decided out on track as well. In 6th and 7th place, you got Reese Margetz and Miguel Crespo. Then you've also got 8th and 9th, Steve Jansen and Andre Yusuf. So battle for 6th, battle for 8th place on track still going to be decided. 10th and 11th, well, they're also tied up to each other as well. And have a look at 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, great battle going on here. Look at Woods. He's on the inside down at Siberia. but he can't really get it too far alongside, and he's going to just squeak in front. Olsen is going to tuck in behind as they head up towards Lukey Heights. Through turns 7 and 8, Woods trying to cover that inside line as they head into Lukey Heights for the final time. Has to be careful not to pinch a tyre on the way down the hill into turn 10. Woods too good to make that kind of errors. We'll cut away for a second because it's Tim Delisle. A clean sweep of the final round of the championship. He wins your feature race tonight. And Josh Stewart across the line for second with a very tidy job. Damon Wood is going to squeak through to grab third at the line. Olsen tried his hardest to try and get there, missed out by just a few thousandths of a second.
9 thousandths of a second I've got on my timing, but I think we've got something a little bit different. 16 thousandths of a second on this timing. Seed gets home as well, and have a look at this between Crespo and Margetts.
Yeah, great battle going on. Who's going to get there first? Who's got a DRS left in the chamber? It must be Margetts because he scoots on past to grab that spot, coming home P6 tonight from Miguel Crespo. It's still a great drive up 10 spots from where he started into P7. Andre Youssef down in 8, Steve Jansen 9, and Rob Bowden, the next one to try and come across the line. He's holding off a Drew Collins behind him for 10th and 11th here. It's been a solid result in recovery. Collins trying to deny him of that P10 spot though, but Bowden will squeak through to go P10. Collins across the line in the 11th spot. Paul Rogers now bringing it around to finish P12 in the Renault 3.5. Marzoka home in 13 from Will Bryant, Robbie Griffiths, and Shane Russell, your 16 finishes. Evans and Capel. Of course, Capel being your safety car driver tonight, not needing to be utilised, and Will Ryan just deciding he's done with driving around in circles. He's going to go cut some donuts in the grass. How about it for Tim Delisle, though, taking the clean sweep in this final round of the championship for, I think, the 4th time we've seen that from anyone this series. Damon Woods did it twice throughout the championship, and Josh Stewart did it back on round 5 at Spa here in the Racecraft Simulations S5000 series.
Yeah, what a phenomenal night of racing as well. I mean, we saw what battle packs 5, 6 deep, and like we said, Rob Bowden, that opening lap was just phenomenal. The jump that he got was phenomenal. I think there's a lot of things that the drivers, you can sort of sit down tonight and go, yeah, they every single driver I think in the field can sit down and say, yeah, I did something very, very well tonight, and that's what you want in terms of things. But for Damon Woods, there's one thing he's done all season long, and it's been that consistency. Yeah, he's been monstrously quick, but it's making sure that you're consistently up there, no contact, you keep it in position, you do everything right. He's check every season, day long, and finally when you come to the final round of the season, that makes your job just a little bit easier.
Yeah, so big congratulations to Damon Woods taking out the championship here for the Racecraft Simulations S5000 E-Series. Celebratory donuts on the main straightaway for both Damon Woods, who claims the championship in the Door Esports number 56 entry, and Tim Delisle with a clean sweep of the night of racing here for the final round. Big congratulations to those guys with an epic night of racing, and I'm sure once we get the other side of the celebratory donuts, we'll get to have a chat with them very soon.
It's the big thing, isn't it, Chris? I mean, you spend all season long looking after all the equipment, making sure that you don't tear it up too much. Well, eventually comes that time you get to tear everything apart, absolutely destroy it. You know, for those of us who don't own a race car and don't have to go racing in that same race car next season, that's exactly what you're doing.
That's it. You just run it on the ragged edge. Just absolutely cane it, because there's no need to try and conserve it anymore, as I'm just trying to drag your podium in here, but now my system has decided to freeze up. Oh, here we go. We'll get them all in. Well, there's a look at your final results real quick before we get to your podium chat. Tim Delisle taking the win for a clean sweep of the night. Josh Stewart home in second, and Damon Woods rounding out the podium in third. From Greg Olsen and Jason Sieg in your top 5, Reese Margetts in 6th, Miguel Crespo a big drive up 10 spots to finish P7 from Youssef Jansen and Rob Bowden rounding out your top 10. Time now for a bit of a podium chat, and congratulations to tonight's winner, Tim Delisle. Big congrats to you, mate.
Thank you. Nothing like peaking too late in a championship.
Hey, mate, a clean sweep is still nothing to be sneezed at. Great job.
Thanks. Yeah, that was definitely my best overall race, I would say, as far as just getting it all together at the right time and keeping it clean throughout, no real big mistakes. So yeah, very happy with that one.
A solid drive, mate. You seem to manage the tyres while being in front. There's got to be a knack to that, because you can't get too worried about the other guys around you maybe moving quickly, or the likes of Joshy in tonight's race just staying buried under your wing the whole time, and you were just kind of towing him along.
Well, funny thing is, like, even though he was my closest competitor, Joshy was the one who helped me out mid-race, noticing that I was taking a much wider line into turn 2, and I was losing time through there. And yeah, once I started cutting that a bit finer, 1, it was quicker, and 2, I'm sure it helped preserve the tyres as well, and the cooling track was good for that too, because yeah, this track basically, it has the characteristics that this car hates: any sort of long corners with traction zones that hurt the rears and let them overheat, and this car hates it. So yeah, that was probably the biggest challenge of this track.
Absolutely. Well, a big night for you, mate. Congratulations once again, taking the win. We'll get to the thank yous and we'll come back around very shortly. We'll move on now to Josh Stewart. Congratulations, second place tonight.
Oh, hello?
Yes, there he is.
Oh, hi. Sorry, it all went blank. I don't know if it was in my head that went blank or on Discord, but yeah, I'm not sure what the question was. But
congratulations, mate, second place.
Oh, well, yeah, thank you. Glad it was relatively smooth race. There was a bit of a hairy moment right at the end there, but thankfully we had built up enough of a gap to Damon and Greg behind that we had a bit of a buffer, so didn't have to get too worried there. I think I caught maybe a bit of damage, so that's why I dropped back a little bit. But yeah, look, I wouldn't have had any more pace if I was out in front. Like you said, Tim was towing me around, so it's probably worth 3-4 tenths here easy. You lose a bit in the corners, but that straight is so long that you gain it all back. So congrats to him. He had a great season and really helped push me along too. So yeah, I'm glad it was a good way to finish it, 1-2.
We were just watching a replay of that moment. You guys arrived on the scene at Southern Loop with the upside down Shane Russell parked right in the middle of the road. Was it at that point just kind of a reflex to flinch to the outside to try and dodge the upside down car?
Yeah, look, I caught it really late because I was pretty close to Tim. He was sort of blocking my view a little bit of the car, so as soon as he moved, then the car was there, and I was like, oh shit, I don't know what I'm going to do. Just, yeah, reflex, went to the outside. It looked a bit of net code. I caught it. I'm not sure if it resulted in damage or not. Like, the car didn't totally lose a lot of pace, but it wasn't quite the same either. But I was just, yeah, thankful we had enough gap behind that we could keep it pointed in the right direction, get back on track and underway. But yeah, definitely a last minute surprise, which this series is renowned for.
I'm sure it is, especially that Mandy Cool finish from a few rounds ago.
Don't remind me.
It's chaotic. Hey, mate, congratulations coming home in second place. We'll come back for the thank yous in just a moment.
Thanks, mate.
And then to third place tonight, and a big congratulations as well, taking out the championship, Damon Woods.
Thank you very much. Not the night that I was really expecting. I thought it was going to be a little bit more competitive, but I don't really mind if I'm sitting third and just bagging the points that I needed. So yeah, my mindset into the first race was to play it safe, and as long as I was behind Tim and he didn't outscore me by like 14 points, then the championship was all mine. So yeah, I just did my thing, and then yeah, feature race I made a little setup change which turned the car into a parachute, but that's all right. Greg and I had an awesome battle at the end there, so I can't really complain all that much.
Mate, still a solid night at the races, just playing the game along. And were you really worrying watching the points, or was it kind of just knowing that you merely had to finish somewhere decent, you'd be in the hunt?
Well, I mean, I'd done all the calculations before tonight, so I knew what the scenario was, but yeah, my mindset coming tonight was pretty much just worst case if Tim outscores enough to keep the championship alive into the last race, then I'll just play it safe. But obviously, yeah, I was able to grab it. But yeah, it was quite an interesting mindset that I was going to.
I'm sure it's always the dilemma of a race car driver in that position. Well, congratulations, mate, taking out the championship and third place tonight. Who do you have to thank?
As always, I'd like to thank the Dora Esports boys. They've been a huge help this season. So without them, I wouldn't be able to compete at the way I am. So without them, I would be not in the same position I am now. VRS, Recaro, JBL, Arima Sportswear, SX Group, FRG for putting on the splendid championship, and Tim and Josh for putting on absolute hella battle for the second half of this season. So yeah, thank you very much to those boys.
Fantastic, mate. Lap it up, ladies and gentlemen. Join me in congratulating one final time your series champion for the Racecraft Simulations S5000 E-Series, Damon Woods. We'll now go to second place again. Josh Stewart, congratulations once again, mate. And third in the championship. Who do you have to thank?
Big thanks to Downforce Racing. Those guys, Jace, Mig, Rusty, in particular, have been, helping support us through this this series, but also a long time, for many years, they've been there helping us grow. Also, Jay, Phil, and Ted behind the scenes who aren't in this series, but equally help out the team a bunch. So thanks to those dudes. Also, Tim and Greg, they're not officially part of the team, but for a long time we've been good friends, and they've, really helped us. And in particular, pushed me a lot to get better during this series. It's unfortunate I had a few real rough races, but in the first half of the series, but managed to pull some good results by the second half. So yeah, it's been an experience and an awesome one. So thanks to FRG and you guys for putting on the broadcast. It's been great. And big congrats to Damon. He's relentless, just unreal. So congrats, man.
Great stuff, mate. We'll move on to then once again tonight's winner and taking out second place in the championship, Tim Delisle. Who would you like to thank this evening?
First of all, Damon, just thanks and congratulations. Awesome championship win, fully deserved. I really wanted this, and I've driven this car since 2019 and had some pretty good results in it. So for Damon to come in fresh, not knowing the car, traditionally a GT driver in iRacing at least, and just show us all how it's done is really impressive. So yeah, big congrats to him. Thanks to Greg, my PSR teammate, and the DFR guys, Josh and the crew, setups, and just helping me get back up to speed after some time out. So that's it on the driver's side, I guess. And you guys for the coverage, putting on the championship. I might have had a couple of red mist moments in some races, but I really do appreciate the time that goes into putting on something like this. So big thanks.
Fantastic effort from you all season long, mate, and congratulations once again.
Thank you.
Well, Scotty, it's been a bit of a wild night at the races with the S5000s and a solid way to cap off a big championship here for the E-Series.
Yeah, phenomenal driving, and obviously Phillip Island is the play host of the final round to bring it home in Australia at a phenomenal circuit, and like the driver said, a tricky circuit as well. Look, there was just phenomenal battles from lights out to flag tonight, so a lot to say thank you for.
It's been always a pleasure to host this championship and to see all of these fantastic races going at it across the series. And with that, the Racecraft Simulations S5000 E-Series comes to a close, powered by FRG. Rook Hoystra, unfortunately, not well enough to come in and join us for a post-season debrief and a quick chat, but I'm sure on behalf of himself and all the people behind the scenes in Formula Racing Group, well, thank you all for joining us. Thank you to all the racers, and thank you to all the staff behind the scenes, especially Lachlan Capel, Rook Hoystra, Ty Ratcliffe, and Dave Roberts. And of course, thank you to Luke for the broadcasting duties on Race Stars TV. Don't be scared though, we are back next week after all with some more racing on Race Stars TV. Same time, same place, same channel, and I'm trying to check, I think we're back with Formula Fords next week according to my calendar. So make sure you check in Tuesday night on Race Stars TV, and a big thank you for the final time to Racecraft Simulations for getting behind the championship. We'll see you next week.